In this video, we will discuss about rosacea. It's a chronic inflammatory condition, and it is shown in this figure. It is basically the redness of the skin that is occurred because of the inflammation, because of the activation of inflammation condition. So what happens is that the UV exposure of the skin might leads to ER stress or might trigger ER stress that will leads to inflammation and angiogenesis. So we will understand how this thing happens within the skin briefly. So whenever the skin or such peoples who have this rosacea got exposed to UV, what happens is there is a ER stress. The things that happens within the cell is the ER stress get induced, and that will leads to ATF4 mediated signal, and whenever the these signals get activated, it will trigger TLR2 signaling response or toll-like receptor. It will activate toll-like receptor, and this will leads to upregulation of this kallikrein 5 or KLK5. One additional thing that we know that we we should know that the absence or mutation of this KLK5 might lead to ovarian cancer, as the mutation in KLK5 will inhibit the proteolytic process that KLK5 does. With ER stress, so let's go back to the topic. With the ER stress, it will leads to upregulation of this cathelicidin protein. So this cathelicidin protein will increase, and because of this TLR2, this KLK5 will also increase. So what will happen, what is the final product is that the cleavage, proteolytic cleavage of cathelicidin, the product of proteolytic cleavage of cathelicidin will improve, will increase. For example, this LL37 and active peptide will increase, and with increase in this peptide will trigger the inflammation and angiogenesis, and the result of this in both of this will leads to redness of the skin, as it is shown in the figure. So what is angiogenesis? We will discuss this thing in this panel. So angiogenesis is basically the formation of blood vessels within the blood cell, within the uh, we can say within formation of blood vessels within the existing endothelial cells. So what happens in this case is that with the release of angiogenic factor, in this case this LL37 and active peptide uh, near the injured or diseased tissue, that it will bind to the receptors uh, that will ultimately bind to the endothelial cells, as it is shown here. After that, what happens is that binding of receptors to the endothelial cell will activate the endothelial cells, and after activation this proteases will release, or we can say the angiogenic factors will release from the membrane and will dissolve, or will this angiogenic factor that is bind to the endothelial cells that activated the endothelial cells will get released after the activation of these endothelial cells. And what happens after that is that this endothelial cells will uh, migrate, and this proliferation of this endothelial cell will increase. That will finally leads to a sprouted of blood that is formed, and after that what happens is that the matrix metalloprotease production will increase to dissolve the extracellular matrix, and make it into a blood vessel forms. And after that, the next step is that the tied to angiopoietin will promote the tube-like formation, will promote the tubule formation. So MMP will dissolve the extracellular matrix and initiate remodeling, and Tie2 will further enhance this remodeling and then form a tubule-like formation. The next step is that the interaction of EPHB and Eprin B system regulate the loop formation. How the blood will circulate, that will be regulated by this EPHB and Eprin B system. And finally, what happens is that the stabilization of the newly formed blood vessels is done by pericytes. So this will lead to the new blood vessel formations, and that might also uh, promote this redness of the skin. So new blood vessel formation occurs within the or near the already exist endothelial cells that might cause or increase the circulation of blood in a closed area, that in a condensed place, that will lead to redness of this eyes, redness of the skin. In some cases, rosacea might also affect the eyes. So I hope you have understood this rosacea chronic inflammatory condition in brief, and this 10-step angiogenesis process. If you need to understand this thing in detail, you can go through the references that has been provided in the description. That's all for this video. Thank you for your time.